Las especies ornamentales se cultivan y comercializan.
Ornamental species are cultivated and marketed for their aesthetic characteristics, whether they are their flowers, leaves, stems, or fruits.
Generalmente son empleadas con fines decorativos.
They are generally used for decorative purposes in gardens and landscape designs, but also as indoor plants or for cut flowers, giving rise to the important floriculture industry.
De la floricultura. Además,
in addition, these species have a wide retail and wholesale market.
Como mayorista.
Bueno, Alejandro Sileone, soy cultivador.
Alejandro Sileone. I am a grower in the Escobar area, and we have been around for years or better than generations of people who are dedicated to nurseries.
De viveristas, ¿no? Bueno, estamos en el partido de Escobar, en las Azucenas, al 2505 acá.
We are in Escobar at 2505. It is an area that at first was only populated by people who were dedicated to floriculture.
Después con los años fue cambiando a la parte de plantas de interior.
Then over the years it moved to indoor and floral plants, and now most of it is full of ornamental plant crops. Virtually everything is already cultivated with indoor plants or ornamental plants.
Bueno, esto comencé yo ahora unos 42 años, 43 años. Este vivero nació siendo...
I started with this work about 43 years ago. This nursery was born for cut flowers, such as roses, but I made the change to implement indoor plants because the land was already depleted and the flower did not have much value because it was changing the market. So we dedicate ourselves to doing what we are seeing.
Y después hicimos la sociedad, no sé si tuviste, Boyan Naturalis, que con nuestros japoneses.
Later we formed a partnership, known as well as Naturals, which involved some Japanese, and we have been carrying it out for a few years. The beginning of this project was complicated by the change from floriculture to ornamental plants.
No conocíamos el mercado, no conocíamos los clientes, y bueno...
At first we did not know the market, we did not know the clients, and little by little we were gaining market, and we are doing more or less well because we have stabilized.
Hemos estabilizado ya. Y caminando, yendo a ver a Brasil, yendo a otros países, a Holanda.
After walking and traveling to Brazil, the Netherlands and Germany to get to know the market and learn about its marketing, we ended up becoming our own marketing center with the participation of 3 Japanese.
En sociedad con 3 japoneses, y despacito fuimos creciendo, ¿viste? Y vamos yo hace 4 o 5 años incorporé toda la parte de gajos.
We grew very slowly. For example, about 5 years ago I implemented some stems that are introduced into the ground to reproduce flowers and thus sell to other nurserymen. We are advancing little by little.
Para nosotros está bien en este momento. Los años estos de pandemia fueron muy buenos porque...
It's fine for us right now. The pandemic years were very good because people, being locked up, bought a lot more. Now the market is normalizing because sales normally start when classes start until Mother's Day.
Arranca la venta fuerte hasta octubre, el Día de la Madre. Después se frena durante todas las vacaciones y los meses de verano.
Then it stops during the holidays and the summer months, and then returns in March. The strong months are August, September and October, when 50% of the production is sold.
Nos fortaleció a los que hacemos planta, a los floricultores, los rejodió.
The pandemic had a very strong impact on those who work in the floriculture sector. Here in Argentina and in Brazil the cemeteries were closed, there were no birthdays, there were no weddings, and there was nothing. Contrary to this, those who are dedicated to horticulture were greatly benefited because people in the house bought lettuce, tomato and other plants to dedicate their free time to this activity, and that is why this area moved a lot. The orchards, even the hydroponics, grew a lot.
Es que no tenía otra cosa para hacer, no es que se despertó de que estaban encerrados y no podían hacer nada, ¿viste?
People in a pandemic woke up and had nothing to spend their time on then. They bought clothes, slippers or something like that online, or, on the contrary, they dedicated themselves to growing vegetables in the garden or balcony. Someone always benefits from problems and someone also it hurts for that very reason.
Bueno, acá lo principal, acá más o menos tengo unos 25.000 metros cubiertos de invernáculo. El principal producto que hacemos es el lecho.
Here I have 25,000 meters covered in a greenhouse. The main product we make are ferns. We bring the small plants from Holland and here we reproduce them. The rest are floral stems that we have mother plants of our own and we sell to whoever is interested. For example, Bolivians, Japanese, Paraguayans, and other growers to continue producing it.
En plaque y ellos lo siguen produciendo, ¿no?
La decoración con plantas en el hogar.
Decorating with plants at home is one of the most popular thanks to all the benefits they represent. Ferns are one of the most beautiful and popular plants to decorate, thanks to the fact that they are plants that give a great freshness to the environment.
Una gran frescura al ambiente. Además,
in addition, this beautiful plant has a wide variety of species of different shapes and sizes, so it is almost certain that there is a perfect one for each space in the home.
Para cada espacio en el hogar. Se dice que los helechos son la planta más antigua.
Ferns are said to be the oldest plant on Earth and are plants that last a long time without seed. They reproduce by spores or by seedlings that grow on a type of horizontal stem. This reproduction may seem complicated, but in reality it is enough to have the proper care to ensure its growth.
Para asegurar su crecimiento.
Y el helecho el que menos mano de obra me lleva. Si pondría algún floral, antes teníamos florales, impatien, alegría.
The fern is what represents the least amount of labor for me. Before we had various species of flowers and they had more frequent maintenance. But with the fern we do maintenance and change every 8 months or a year. You practically plant it here and after 9 months you are harvesting it, therefore, it does not need as much labor and the workers can be occupied with other tasks. Otherwise, it would be necessary to have almost twice as many personnel if you had other cycle varieties short.
Y estos helechos son, bueno, hay 2-3 variedades que los traemos de Holanda, de Vitro Plus.
We have 2 or 3 varieties of ferns that we bring from Holland, for example, the Gordon Blue and the Boston that are up here. The third variety is present in many more places. They are very resistant varieties that do not need heating because here winter is very hard. We have temperatures of 2 or 3 degrees below zero in cities like Buenos Aires, and these withstand the cold very well. This is one of the main reasons for having these varieties here, because we have less fuel, gas, energy costs. The idea is to save money because here in Argentina we have cheap energy. But because there is hardly any, right now we suffer cuts of many things.
Cortes de luz, corte de gas, estamos con todos esos problemas, ¿no? Y bien cuidado es eterno, es eterno. Vos te llevas una planta de esta y si la persona la tiene con buena sombra.
Well cared for, the fern is an eternal plant. If a person has the fern with good shade and knows how to fertilize it, it lasts a long time. Generally, people don't last because they put it in a place that doesn't go or that they are left indoors. But if the buyer is a little careful, it will last. So for about 6 or 7 months there will be no problem. But that is convenient for us because if it lasts too long, our business would be ruined by not renewing the plant.
Y esto necesita no mucha luz. Todo acá está todo manejado con sombra de 70-80%.
The ferns need little light. Here we have everything in shade up to 80% in winter, and when it is summer we have it at 20%.
Vos ves cómo están las plantas, están muy lindas. Estas plantas se plantaron acá hace 4 meses y medio, 5 meses, y ya dentro de un mes más van a estar, mes y medio más, ya están para la venta.
You can see how we have the plants that have been here for about 5 months, and in a month and a half they will be ready for sale. Everything must be harvested by the end of April. Irrigation is by trickle, better drip type. It is something that you handle day by day. This summer was very hot, and we had to irrigate every day, but normally we do it 3 times a week.
Normalmente se riega 3 veces por semana.
During the summer of this year we had temperatures of 40 degrees every day, so it was very complicated, something abnormal.
Normal fue, ¿viste? Los inviernos no nos afectan mucho, como tenemos calefaccionado, no tenemos problema. Nos afecta más los veranos cuando son muy...
Winters do not affect us much because we have heating. We have more difficulty with summers because there is no way to ventilate a lot and generate cold. Using energy for that is very expensive, so we were affected because we lost a lot of merchandise. In horticulture, let's not even talk, because I have colleagues who planted their greenhouses with lettuce, almost 3 times more than what they usually plant, and everything was lost due to the heat so high that was inside the greenhouses, and they cooked everything. Within everything, we have years of experience, with 2 people who know this management very well. I don't need to be here because they know how to do everything correctly.
Canchera, hace años que están conmigo y saben manejarlo bien. Sí, bueno, estas 2 encargadas que tengo, una japonesa y la otra es boliviana, son argentinas las 2, pero...
Of the 2 employees I have, one is Japanese and the other is Bolivian. They have been here for about 3 years and came from another crop. The Japanese woman is an agronomist, and the other girl came from working in other nurseries and had some experience. When I travel abroad, I always take an apparatus that can emulate something of what they see there, although it is somewhat difficult because without a doubt it is another level of production.
De copiar algo de allá que es muy difícil para nosotros porque otro nivel de producción es. Argentina es muy chiquitito y no hay tanta producción como en Europa, ¿viste?
Argentina is very small and there is not as much production as in Europe. But still we handle ourselves well and we count on the experience we have acquired.
Que la verdad que lo importante que son ellos los que están todo el día al frente del vivero y son los que tienen que manejar. El problema más complicado de Argentina es manejar.
And the important thing is to have trained people in front of the nursery. Here in Argentina, managing the staff is very difficult. For example, in Brazil and the Netherlands one finds a different workforce.
La obra está muy escasa y hay todo un problema con los...
But here in Argentina one finds scarce labor, and with some problems of a union and political nature. If one wanted to enlarge the nursery at this time it would be impossible because staff cannot be found.
Cuando ya está en tamaño, tiene un tamaño óptimo, eso también es según el gusto del cliente. Hay cliente que le gusta más clarito.
The ferns are sold when they already have an optimal size, but that is also up to the client's taste. There are people who like it lighter, others darker, with more shade. That depends on the client's tastes. Sometimes we do not have so much space and that's when we offer what we have to a colleague who ends up waiting the time he needs to be ready. That happens when we have a space problem, but currently that doesn't happen right now because we're good, but we also make those kinds of offers.
Y el de arriba es un bol 24 que tarda un año. Y este es un bol 18 que no 7 meses.
The fern you see at the top is a gold 24 variety that takes a year to be ready for sale. The one below is a bold 18 that is ready in 7 months for sale. The substrate is the same, and the variety is different. We use the same fertilizer, the same watering. That's why I try to have most of the ferns because we use a single fertilizer and a single substrate. If you have flowers, you should use other elements and much lighter substrates, which would make it more complicated to handle.
Normalmente lo hacemos con máquina, pero ahora estos helechos grandes, como la máquina no toma el helecho del 24 en la enmacetadora.
Normally we do it with a machine, however, a machine known as the potting machine, does not recognize large ferns. These we have to do by hand. But normally we plant everything with a machine. In 2 days, 10,000 ferns were planted, because the machine takes the pot, makes the hole, and you put the plant in it, and the biggest job is to put the hook on it. But normally we do that with a machine, much of the work.
Son gente que está hace años, viste ya, lo van haciendo por... Acá prácticamente, este chico trabaja con nosotros hace años.
The people who work here are people who have been doing it for years. The person you are seeing there has worked with us for a long time, and his job now is to incorporate the ferns into the pots because there is nothing else to do. He is generally in charge of preparing the land with the machine. He does the pertinent sterilizations, among others. These days have been rainy and consequently there is a lot of mud and thus it is not possible to work, but normally this work is done with a machine called a potting machine, Italian, that fills some trays.
Sí. Yo tengo un técnico agrónomo que viene cada 15 días más o menos.
In this crop we have the help of an agronomist who comes every fortnight to do the soil analysis. If there is a problem, he takes care of it. He talks with the girls who are in charge of the plants to find out the latest events, and he solves what is not right.
Solucionando también, tenemos un asesoramiento constante, ¿viste?
We have constant advice throughout the year. His visits are every 15 days. But if we need him sooner, it is enough to call him so that he can come and check what is happening, and that is very important.
Y yo jubilarme, porque la verdad que ya tengo 63 años y ya hace rato que estoy. Ahora estoy empezando que mi hijo trabaje un poco.
I plan to retire soon because I am 63 years old, and I have been planning to leave this job for a while. I have already begun to soak my son in the business so that he can continue what I do. This is a fairly monotonous job because we always do the same thing, from time to time of the year to sell our September and October, during spring and Mother's Day. Then comes Valentine's Day, the Day of the Dead, but those kinds of dates do not represent a high level of sales. In general it is a monotonous task, so it is not difficult to manage. The most complicated thing to manage is the staff. I worked with my father when he was a flower grower. I always liked this and I still do.
Yo me voy de vacaciones a Brasil.
For example, when I go on vacation to Brazil, even when I'm off, I always try to visit a nursery. They are vacations mixed with work because I like to see what the competition is doing or what's new in the sector. That's my way of being.
La forma de uno, ¿no? De ser. Y en Colombia no sé cómo, yo conozco Colombia, pero no sé, pero acá en Argentina es muy difícil.
I don't know much about the sector in Colombia. However, here in Argentina it is very difficult to start this business because the land is very expensive. The nursery structures cost too much. Getting started costs very little, but starting is possible. For example, I know people who were my employees, then they rented a lot, promoted 2 or 3 nurseries and started with flowering plants, which is the fastest and cheapest thing to do.
Despacito fueron creciendo, ¿viste? Hay mucha gente que fue creciendo así, como crecieron los inmigrantes, mi viejo que fue italiano inmigrante o...
There are many people who grew up like this, even immigrants, like my father who came to this country from Italy and even my partners who are Japanese migrants. You have to make an effort to get ahead, and proof of this are Bolivian migrants who promote many nurseries in Argentina and the sale of vegetables. Within this business, the most important thing is the workforce, the human part, because the structure is important, but if you don't have the desire to work and passion for the work, it is very difficult for you to do anything.
Ahora hay mucha tecnología, podés, inclusive los mismos, nosotros por ejemplo que hacemos los plaques y si lo vendemos a bolivianos, paraguayos, japoneses.
Now there is a lot of technology. We even sell certain seeds to Uruguayans, Paraguayans, Bolivians and Japanese. The engineer who works with us gives guidance or training on how to plant them, what substrate to use, what fertilizer to apply, what other elements should be considered to do against pests. There is a whole circuit made for that in Argentina.
En otros países es más, es mejor todavía, ¿viste?
In countries like Brazil it's even better. They practically sell you the products so you can do everything. They give you everything. People just have to put the soil in the pot, Otherwise, they give you advice, support, and guidance within the cost you pay for the plant.
Te dan asesoramiento, todo metido en el mismo costo del plantín, ¿viste? De lo que más me hago es hacer bandejas de gajos. Y porque lo que tiene más primero lo que tiene primero me deja un poco más de dinero.
What I like to do are the small seed trays, because it is what represents the most money for me. It gives us the possibility of having a faster rotation of plants, and I like that movement more. Like others, for example, what I like the most they like to do is plant orchids that can take a year and a half to be ready.